What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to this special New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-view post-show. We're here to review Dominion, which just took place, and joining me on this edition is Robert D. Felice.
Yes, Dominion has come and gone, and wow, we have a lot of information on the G1 Climax tournament.
Yes, we do. The G1 is the next big thing coming for New Japan, but before we can get there, we need to just go back and check over what happened on this show. A few things of note, but overall, I think pretty good show. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say it was a very good show, and it set the stage for the mid-season of New Japan quite nicely.
I think it might just be a case of being overloaded with wrestling so much the last month or so
Oh,
that
yes.
maybe this one didn't land as flush with me straight away, but it's still a very good show. Just there's been so much good wrestling and so much bad wrestling as well, as we covered in the Super Showdown.
Yes.
So yeah, but this one's going to be a lot more of a positive review. It's going to be a lot shorter as well because let's face
Uh,
it, we were both up particularly early to watch this thing, and we just want to get through the matches and go home and rest really.
yes.
So let's kick it off then with the opener, which was Jon Moxley, the new IWGP US champion, defeating Shota Umino in basically as much of a squash you're going to get out of a New Japan match.
I really like this emphasis on Jon Moxley, who had a phenomenal true debut on Wednesday against Juice Robinson. And he came in here with this young lion who came on really strong, but once Moxley got going, it was like an old school, real, WWF Superstars jobber match where he took Umino out real quick and even nicely helped him to the back.
Yeah, I don't know what Moxley's affiliation is just yet. Whether he's a hit, I mean, they're a lot more loose with this thing in New Japan. It doesn't really damage them too badly, but you don't know if he's a heel or a babyface just yet.
Well,
He's
they
not
seem to
affiliated.
make it a point on commentary to say, don't put him in a box. He's after everybody. He just does what he wants.
Well, yeah, obviously the idea is the fact that unless there could be an agreement forged between AEW and New Japan in the coming months, he'll be out of New Japan by October because he'll become exclusive to AEW.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that regard. But for this time, he's the champion. He defeated Umino in less than 4 minutes. Umino's good. He's a very competent performer, and really at this point should be coming close to going on excursion.
Yeah, well, he took Tanahashi to the limit in the New Japan Cup, and because of that, I thought they might let him get a little competitive with Moxley here, but I'm sure within a year or two, Umino will be one of those, definitive New Japan guys.
I'd think so. So that was the opener, and then that was followed up with Shingo Takagi.
Well, hold on. It
Oh,
was followed up with Jon Moxley being the first man to declare himself for the G1 Climax tournament.
I was going to try and round that up towards the end, but yeah, well, it's very good news that Moxley's going to be fighting throughout this thing. But basically, when we talk about the G1, there was, if we can just probably just round it all here. So Moxley was the first person tonight to announce it. It was followed by Takagi, which we'll talk about in his match later, and then later on, well, let's go match by match because we don't want to spoil the surprise for people that haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So next match was Shingo Takagi against Satoshi Kojima. So Takagi had just lost his Best of the Super Juniors final against Will Ospreay in a fantastic match. This was not at the same standards of him against Will Ospreay, but this was a win over an established, like, former New Japan champion, and essentially it was about establishing Takagi as transitioning from the junior heavyweight into the heavyweight division.
Yeah, and I thought the match was very well done. Obviously, it wasn't going to come anywhere near the match that he had with Ospreay on Wednesday, but very well done. Nice showcase for Takagi while, not totally losing sight of who Kojima is. And then Shingo Takagi, second man, to declare I want to compete with the heavyweights, and I'm going to do so in the G1 Climax.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he functions in it, because I think that Ospreay's already spoken about the fact that he wants to compete in the G1 as well, which means at the moment it's looking like the G1 Climax is going to have very, very different competitors as there was the previous year.
It'll be a more open weight vibe.
Yeah, and a lot more fresh faces to kind of freshen it up. Not that the G1 has been bad for the past previous years; it's been fantastic, but it's really good to get some new fresh faces into it. And with this sort of match, it was mainly built around the fact that both these guys use clotheslines, and really powerful clotheslines, and would try and just wear each other down throughout the contest. And the fact that Takagi gets this victory, even though Kojima doesn't have the same sort of level of performance or value that he used to have, it's still a win over a big name, and it definitely did its job of, okay, this guy has transitioned away from the junior heavyweights, he's now going to be a heavyweight performer for Los Ingobernables, especially with the fact that you can only assume that Hiromu's coming back soon.
Well, one would hope, because Hiromu is trying hard to come back. I know the injury was pretty brutal, but with Takagi, for people who may not watch New Japan, it's like if Brian Kendrick transitioned to the heavyweights by defeating, let's say, Randy Orton. Is that fair?
I'd probably go more along the lines of, let's say back in 205 Live that Cedric Alexander had defeated Bobby Roode.
Right. Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, it's just a case of because Takagi is bigger than the average junior heavyweight, and Satoshi Kojima is established but past his peak at this point.
So good win for him, and honestly, I'm excited to see what he does in the G1.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in there. So he moved on to a tag team match. Jyushin Thunder Liger and Yoshi-Hashi defeated the Suzuki Gun team of Minoru Suzuki and Zack Sabre Jr.
That doesn't sound right on paper.
No, it doesn't. And I had to say, I was surprised that this wasn't a one-on-one match between Liger and Suzuki.
They're building towards that.
Yeah, they're still building towards it, but I thought Dominion would be... I mean, it's their second biggest show of the year. I thought that would be the place to do it, but if they want to save it up to be maybe the main event of another smaller show going forward, then I'd be totally cool with that. I think obviously the biggest talking point, besides the fact that the Liger and Suzuki feud is continuing and it's building up quite nicely, is the fact that Yoshi-Hashi scored the victory over Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, he kind of just out-wrestled him. And I don't know how I feel about that. It seemed very wrong to me, but I guess Zack Sabre Jr. can always come back with a very strong championship defense against Yoshi-Hashi, and all will be right with the world.
Yeah, so I think that they're trying to get Yoshi-Hashi as over as they possibly can at this point, and for the most part, he seems to be getting a better reaction from the audience than he used to do before his injury. But I don't know how far it can really go with him. He's just the guy that you need in Chaos for the big heel to defeat before he goes after Okada and stuff like that.
And I don't see him ever being the British Pro Champion, so it's just not going to happen. But it was a nice win, and Zack Sabre Jr. had the perfect reaction. He was frustrated. He threw the ice pack down, threw the belt. So I'm interested to see how strong he comes back.
Yeah, so we moved on from that into a 6-man tag. Taguchi Japan's a team of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Juice Robinson, and Ryusuke Taguchi, defeating the Bullet Club's trio of Jay White, Chase Owens, and Taiji Ishimori.
I love Jay White. I think Jay White is so good, and that's saying something because when he first came back last year, I was not into him, and now he's easily one of my favorite guys to watch in New Japan. Juice Robinson, very serious. He no longer has the dreads of CJ Parker. I was actually posing this question on Twitter. Do you think he can one day be as serious of a competitor as like a Dynamite Kid, or somebody of that ilk who's very hard hitting and stone faced?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, time will tell, really. It's a very big disconnect from his previous character. And I don't know whether, I mean, if he pulls it off, then good for him, but it's not sitting right with me at the moment. It's like he wants to get serious, so he gets pushed to the top, but he felt more over and more, he felt different when he didn't have that look.
You think there
And
was more of a genuine feel to it?
yeah, I think it's. I'll put it this way: this feels like when Dolph Ziggler, uh, like dyed his hair brown or didn't dye his hair, like with a bleach blonde look or whatever. It's like, okay, so you're trying to look not generic because that's what you think gets you to the top. And somebody with like massive dreadlocks and a very like more like flamboyant personality can't be a main eventer.
I do feel like that was more of a genuine take on him, and he was bringing a different flavor to New Japan. But I'm also willing to see where this can go. You know what I mean? I think Juice Robinson has proven that he can be a serious competitor, and maybe this is as simple as he's serious long enough to take the belt back from Moxley, and that's when he'll go back to being a little more fun-loving.
Fair enough. This is just your standard 6-man New Japan match. Nothing too much breaking from the ordinary. The only thing of note was, well, at least in my mind, and unfortunately it's a negative, is Tanahashi's new finisher looks terrible.
Everybody said that. I just thought he fucked up. You remember the final cut, right? The
Yeah,
Big Show does. I just thought he fucked that up, and next time he'll hit it more spot on.
oh
Everybody
yeah,
was like, "What did he do?" They couldn't seem to figure out what move he was even trying to go for.
yeah. I imagine like it will look better going forward, but it's just a case of when you see that move finish a match and you know how good Tanahashi can be, just seeing that and think, oh, that's a little weak. But
Yeah, that's
uh,
fair.
other than that, it wasn't bad at all. You can assume that Tanahashi, Juice Robinson, and Jay White at least will be in the G1 climax. Chase Owens is a little more of a I guess it depends on how much room there is.
He'll probably get in there because they still like that Bullet Club representation.
Well, speaking of two people that are almost certainly going to be in the G1, Tomohiro Ishii defeated Taichi to become the new Never Openweight champion. This title is switching hands quite a lot, and I guess it's not one of the major. It's like a tertiary title as opposed to one of the major ones. But yeah, it just like it'll be interesting to see if Tomohiro Ishii is the one to give this a bit of a lengthy reign to it.
I think he's more of the style that they're looking for with the Never Openweight Championship. Taichi was never going to hold it for too long, even though he slapped Ishii so hard in this match, and that was actually a huge highlight for me because it was just so forceful. And they were really trying to tell the story of like Ishii brings out the real fighting spirit in Taichi, and I thought that was interesting.
That it is an interesting story. Based on watching this, I thought this is a better than average Tai Chi match and a worse than average Tomohiro Ishii match. Is essentially how like it rolled down to me. I like the fact that they're trying to do the story of Taichi is somebody who cheats and takes shortcuts at every possible opportunity, and Ishii is the one that's trying to say, just fight me and try and prove yourself. And on this occasion, Taichi came up short. But it might be an interesting transition to maybe make Taichi break away from Suzuki-gun eventually and join up with Chaos and try and get under Tomohiro Ishii's wing. That could be an interesting take on it.
It's interesting that they're Taichi's another unique character that they're trying to transition into a very standard serious role. I wonder if they're trying to get back to their roots a little bit as a promotion.
Potentially, maybe it's just a case of they're trying to bring on board other people that maybe have more flamboyant or energetic personalities, and they're trying to transition some other ones into more serious roles. I would hate to see a lot of the fun elements of New Japan to go away, because the best thing about Taichi has always been his entrance and the posturing and the flamboyant nature of his character. And if you strip that away from him, he's just a guy who's basically an average worker.
I agree. I saw a lot of people on Twitter calling him the Miz of New Japan.
Yeah, he is very much so.
And it's like, what's wrong with a little bit of flamboyancy? You know, I think that's part of what gives Okada his charm.
Well, let's put it this way: if the Miz didn't have any flamboyancy, he'd have nothing. he'd have great mic skills, but he'd have nothing in terms of like his ring work. He's very basic, and that's not a bad thing. Like the stuff that he does well, but it's all very basic. And you could say the same thing with Taichi in terms of what he does in relation to New Japan. The only things that he does that are a little bit different are a few high kicks and stuff like that. And in this day and age, everyone does that.
I agree. I think Taichi might be on the path to, I don't know if the redemption, but maybe a change of pace, or maybe this is just a way to get the belt off of him and focus the Never Openweight Championship back into being that kind of brass knuckles, brute force style belt.
Absolutely, and there's no better person to do that than Ishii. Then we had the Guerrillas of Destiny defending the IWGP Tag Team Championship against Evil and Tanada of Los Ingobernables de Japon. I don't want to obviously be too much of a sticky mud, but this match did nothing for me.
Is it me? I'm glad you said that. Or do I see the same tag team title match all the time?
This is happening far too often.
Okay, just making sure.
It's the one area where I think New Japan is extremely weak at this point in time, is their tag team division is lacking vibrancy. The matches are fine, but there's nothing different or exciting about them.
And I don't want to be that guy, but I don't think a relationship with Ring of Honor or CMLL is going to help them here, because Ring of Honor's kind of lacking in their tag team division. But this really stood out to me as like, I've seen this already. You know, I don't necessarily want to see this going forward.
I mean, compare this to NXT's tag team matches, which they're almost always one of the show stealers on every main card they do. Even if people go into that saying, oh, this match is going to be just another match, it turns out being one of the best ones you see. And in these cases, it's like these four guys have worked together so many times that you thought it would be seamless, and it's had the opposite effect of it's made things easy for them, and it means they're not trying that hard. I don't say they're not trying that hard, but it doesn't look like they're trying to put anything new into their matches to make it more interesting.
I think they need to reestablish certain lines again, because for a while, just because of the elite and the popularity that they had when they were in Bullet Club, it seemed like just the words Bullet Club was enough to instill hype. But without that element, they could, you know, use a big angle to kind of put the club back on the map or put Chaos back on the map. I get that there are these faction wars, but just doing the same matches over and over again doesn't do much to further that story.
No, I mean, you have to. I don't mind the faction war element of it, but you need to establish tag teams within that. And the worst thing is that there isn't really any real tag teams outside of these ones. So there's Makabe and Honma, who are both like past their peak at this point. You have Suzuki and Sabre Jr., who are very good, obviously, but they're both heels. They're heels as well as Tamatonga and Tangaloa. On the Chaos and Taguchi Japan side of things, you have people occasionally hook up and stuff like that. I guess the closest thing they have to a tag team is Yano and Ishii. And Ishii's now a singles champion, so he won't be as concerned about winning the tag team championship.
Yeah, and Yano's a comedy character.
I don't even know who the 6-man tag champions are now.
Oh, I almost thought they were Marty and company, but I'm not sure.
I think they're the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champ, or they at least were. I don't know if it was recently, but this is like the one area where I'm not super thrilled about what New Japan are doing right now, and I think a lot of it is also down to the fact that Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa don't do anything for me either as a tandem. They're very, just there really.
So currently, the 6-man tag team champions are Taguchi, Makabe, and Toriano, which, yes, I do remember watching them win.
Yeah, so it's just a case of this match wasn't super special, but it got the job done. It keeps the titles on Guerrillas of Destiny for a little while. Just be interesting to see if they do come up with another tag team going forward. At least for the G1, you can assume that Tama Tonga and both Evil and Sonada will be in it as well.
Yeah, so maybe that's worse for the tag team division because they know that that's not necessarily going to be a focal point.
No. But speaking also of the G1, we had Katsuri Shibata come out, and he wasn't alone. He brought with him Kenta to the ring.
This was cool.
So the former Hideo Itami, for people that are more familiar with his work in NXT and WWE, he came out. This is his first entrance back into New Japan. I don't even know if he ever wrestled for New Japan before.
No, wasn't he mostly a Noah guy?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So this was an interesting aspect of it. I was a bit shocked that I thought if he was going to join New Japan, I thought, well, they'll put him in the juniors to start with. But no, he said he's announced himself immediately for
the G1.
The G1. So he's immediately establishing himself as heavyweight, and he's gonna. You have to assume that they'll want to try and give him a decent run to start off with.
I think he's gonna have a fantastic run. Let's just briefly talk about the match possibilities for the G1 tournament. You're going to have Kenta and Tanahashi, Kenta and Ibushi, Moxley and Tanahashi, Moxley and Ibushi. Moxley and Suzuki is probably going to happen.
And you'd hope so at some point, yeah.
What a great tournament this can be.
It'll be interesting to see how the two groups are split up, and how many dream match possibilities that throws up for people.
But as far as Kenta, I like the idea of him being with Shibata. I hope Shibata is constantly a cornerman for him. But when he was just pointing at the video wall,
yeah, it took a while
because he's pointing and it's a video of himself, and I'm wondering if it's just gonna words are gonna flash saying I'm back, that he was going to wrestle. And no, out comes Kenta. By the way, people are going to read way too much into this as it is, so I just want to reference it. He wore a black shirt with gold lettering that said Takeover on it, which I thought was pretty cool, a nice little nod. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how well he does. I assume they will likely give him one big win. He should beat one really established guy. He should obviously win a couple of matches, but you can obviously win matches against the guy likes of Tama Tonga or Yoshi-Hashi or something like that, and it doesn't really mean too much. But I think he needs one really big win.
I'm guessing he beats Naito.
Well, we'll get to that in a little while to see why that will be a huge deal. But first of all, we had the Junior Heavyweight Championship match. Will Ospreay, who won the Best of the Super Juniors on Wednesday, defeated Dragon Lee to become the champion for the third time. This match was awesome.
Yeah. Will Ospreay, he needs to just, of all the people moving up to the heavyweights, we mentioned Shingo and Kenta, but Will Ospreay just needs to be a focal point for New Japan moving forward. This guy can't have a bad match. And Dragon Lee hit maybe the coolest suicide dive I've ever seen.
It was among the most dangerous ones I've ever seen as well, but it was pretty awesome. I think it was basically what this is two extremely athletic guys that Ospreay has gotten down a lot more on the psychology side of things, but it's not like Lee is bad in that regards. But it's just two guys basically who are friends and like respect each other immensely, as was shown by the post-match, like putting the belt on Ospreay just to show the sign of respect. Just going out there and say, like, let's just tear the house down. And I'd probably put this up. It's definitely one of the matches of the night, but it might even be the best one for me.
I think that would be fair. I'm not going to give it my match of the night because I'm going to get that to the next one, but this match was 100 miles an hour, and I have to say I'm enjoying the much more methodical and wrestling psychology tapped version of Will Ospreay rather than him and Ricochet just flying around. As good as that is, psychology is always better to me.
Oh yeah, and he's now combining both those aspects to the best possible effect. And now he's the champion again. It'll be interesting to see, or he's already called out who he wants his next challenger to be, which is Robbie Eagles, because they're going to be going to Melbourne soon for a tour. So it makes sense to give it to a local talent who's established himself now in New Japan.
And I believe Eagles defeated him in the Best of Super Junior,
right? I think so. I can't really remember it too much. I know Ospreay lost a few matches at the start of it and had to come from behind to win it. So, but I know he lost to Phantasmo.
It was Eagles and ELP.
Yeah, so that both Bullet Club members, at least for the time being, because they seem to be showing some sort of dissension between Robbie Eagles and the rest of Bullet Club. So it'll be interesting to see if this is a transition for it, but you have to assume that Ospreay has to hold this title for a little while, but if he's going to be moving up to heavyweight, he can't hold on to this title forever.
Who do you think will end up taking the title off of him?
I like the look of Phantasmo. I think he's very, very talented. But
you think going into January it'll be ELP and Eagles?
Potentially, if they decide to split a bit. I think there's a lot of really good options out there. Like Rocky Romero looks great in that tournament.
Yeah,
and Rocky could definitely have a run with the title. He's never actually had a run with the title as Rocky Romero. He's only ever had his run with the title when he was playing Black Tiger. Like the Black Tiger mask against the White Tiger mask, that type of thing.
And I think Rocky Romero is a guy who, because he's featured in a lot of other roles, like he's done commentary, he does a lot of backstage stuff, you forget he's really good in the ring and still deserves a chance to shine.
Oh, we also have to note that commentary tonight was also top notch as usual.
Yeah.
The mixture of Kevin Kelly just keeping all the action going, Don Callis with his references every now and again, and Chris Charlton's definitely getting a lot more comfortable in his position.
Oh yeah, and it's unbelievably helpful to have a translator right there.
Yeah, he's an incredibly useful component to it. Even if he doesn't say that much during it, the stuff that he does say is really really nice touch points and insight into the matches and how people are feeling and how they're talking during the match and all that stuff. Very, very helpful. So we move on from that excellent match to another excellent match, but one that I'm going to have a few gripes about, I have to say. Ibushi versus Naito.
Well, why? Because just saying that match makes your neck hurt a little bit?
I have to say, we spoke about the fact that I appreciate the fact that Ospreay has mixed in the mixtures of psychology and his unbelievable athleticism and become a much safer, more confined worker. Whereas these two, considering the amount of how long they've been wrestling together and how many matches they've had together, surely they know better than this. It's hard to get invested in a match, even no matter how great it is, when you think that somebody's going to break their neck during it.
Especially when somebody wants to do a German suplex on the apron where Kota Ibushi doesn't actually land on the apron, but he hits the side of his head on the apron and then falls face first onto the floor.
Because that's not being a really awesome sport or trying to really excel. That's just pure insanity. Because you're risking, like these two must trust each other more than they trust their own like partners or anything along those lines. They must like they trust them more than their family almost if they were willing to put themselves through this sort of punishment. Ibushi landed on his head about half a dozen times during this match.
Yeah.
And Naito took a lot of damage as well, but Ibushi has a death wish almost. It doesn't take away too much from the match because the match was still great, but also there's the fact that these two have wrestled 4 times. This is the 4th time they've wrestled this year, which if you like equate to WWE terms, that's like having a feud that stretches every single week for the course of 3 months, really.
And this is another instance where, kind of like the tag team match, I say, every other time I'm watching New Japan, Naito's getting this IC title back.
Yeah, he basically that he's now established as he's the de facto Intercontinental champion. In the same way that for a time the Miz was in WWE, same time like Jericho used to be for a while as well. He's now like if he's either fighting for the Intercontinental Championship, he's either challenging for it or he's holding it. That's
I think
kind of his thing now.
We need to either slow down and let him hold it for a year or two, or let the next person who defeats him hold it for a year or two without Naito getting too involved, because I don't know, it just feels like the same story, and he doesn't even like the title. I wonder if this is all leading to him like wanting to take care of the title because he's got that disdain for it because of Wrestle Kingdom 8.
I think I'd be interested to see what happens because my reasoning behind the fact that Naito's holding the Intercontinental Championship for quite a while is the fact that I don't think they have any plans to put the Heavyweight Championship on him, at least not in the very near future.
Yeah, I've figured that out when they didn't put it on him at Wrestle Kingdom 12, and then instead of allowing him to be the one to dethrone Omega, they went right back to Tanahashi. I'm guessing they just do not see Naito being this guy.
Whereas I saw the fact that they took the title off Ibushi as a sign saying he's winning the G1.
You're not the first person to say that to me tonight, but I don't know. It's going to depend on who's in that tournament, what they want to do with Tanahashi. Tanahashi's kind of like that. It's going to be weird to compare this person, but it's almost like Charlotte at this point, where even when they're down, they're never fully out of the picture, you know?
I understand that. I mean, Tanahashi will walk in as one of the favourites as well. I just think it'd be weird. I'd be surprised if they gave him 2 straight wins of this. I think Tanahashi's story, even though it's far from done, that little containing of him rising up and coming back to win the title, I think that portion of his career is done and wrapped up, and he's now going back into the lower reaches for a little while. Obviously, we'll talk about the main event where it seems a certain direction for him is going forward. But I think at the moment, if I was to predict who's going to be the final of the G1, I think it'd be Ibushi against Jay White.
I could see that. And I'm getting excited thinking about Ibushi versus Okada because of, even though I don't know how much they can do with Kenny because he does have that contract, but the story there is really special. And Ibushi's a guy who deals a lot in story and a lot in his past because he is so intrinsically tied to Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, he goes for I was going to call it the Banlieue, but I guess these fans will know it as the Kinshasa almost every match, and the announcers are always playing on that idolization of Nakamura and the rivalry that they had, and I can see them doing similar things with Kenny Omega should he get in the ring with Kazuchika Okada.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting that the 2 people that do the like Bomaye or Kinshasa pose that Nakamura does are him and Taguchi.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'll be an interesting way of putting it. I think it's likely that we have Ibushi go very deep in the tournament, and if he doesn't win, he's going to come very close. I mean, he was the finalist last year. It would make sense for him to go further forward, but like you say, it's going to be a completely stacked lineup of people. It could be Jay White, it could be Tanahashi, it could be if Omega is able to get involved in it, then that would be interesting. But you'd probably look at people like Ishii as wild cards. Maybe if they want to really push Ibushi or Kenta or Takagi straight to the moon, they could give them a good showing in this as well. It's going to be interesting how they structure it.
And let's not forget, even though it's got Royal Rumble-like tendencies where this decides the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, the champion can always win and then choose his opponent.
Absolutely. And then we'll talk about the championship here, because the main event was Kazuchika Okada successfully defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Chris Jericho. First of all, the first thing of note was that Jericho couldn't come out to Judas, at least on the video. I think it must be something to do with the rights that he signed over to AEW. That must be the only reason, because he's previously been able to use it before, but now he's appeared for AEW and signed with AEW. I guess there's restrictions on that now.
That's interesting, because why would not just use another Fozzy song?
Well, I guess it's depending on what Jericho's willing to give them if they don't have a working relationship. I mean, right. Jericho has the working relationship because he's got separate contracts with both AEW and New Japan. But I guess it's just a case of essentially he's coming out to the ring on the shows to Judas. Like live, he's coming out to Judas, but on the TV we can't hear that. It's the same way that Maccabi comes out to a song which has its license taken up.
Ah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought the music was just different for everybody.
Nah, it's he's definitely coming, because they showed the sign at the top of it, like music has been changed for copyright purposes or copyright reasons. So, or rights uses, whatever they called it. But essentially, this is it's old school, but I don't want to say it was remarkably better than the Triple H Randy Orton match, but Okada's definitely more in his prime, and Jericho can still do a lot of the stuff that he used to do, but he's mixed it in with just being a complete dick. And that's good. That's the way you do it, because it's basically one of the first spots in the match is Okada goes for his clean break spot, and Jericho just pokes him in the eye with his finger. And there's just all Jericho for a while after that.
Jericho is, in my mind, legitimately having one of the best runs of his career. And you can't undersell that psychology that he has gotten from the 28 years of experience. The only thing I have an issue with, and this is so small, me being stupid, but I don't like that he went for the Judas effect. Because I would have liked that to just be, because that's his AEW thing. Because at the end of the day, it's just a spinning back elbow. I don't really believe you're going to beat Okada with it, you know?
No, well, to be fair, Okada beats guys with a clothesline.
That's true.
So, but you got a case of, they were doing quite a lot of stuff early on with Jericho caught Okada leaping over the barricade with a codebreaker, which I don't think hit as cleanly as they would have liked to, but it still looked good.
I love the DDT on the table.
Yeah, that's become one of Jericho's signatures in New Japan, so that's a good thing to have. He got another table out, but we didn't actually see it break. Spoiler alert, but at least they teased it at certain points. Do you think they might have been watching what happened in Super Showdown when they decided to do 4 tombstone reversals in a row?
Yeah. Yeah, there's something there that just says, hey, guess what? I'm 50 and I can still do it. You know?
Yeah. I thought that might have been that was a little on the nose, but the fact they did it successfully was fine. If they'd have fucked up doing it, then they would have just looked even more stupid. But I guess they can get away with it. They had Jericho got Okada into the walls of Jericho multiple times. They really did a line tamer version of it. It was mainly just the Boston Crab version over and over again, which I'm happy that it doesn't win matches. It hasn't won a match yet in New Japan, because that is the traditional young boy submission move. Is the Boston Crab. And so it's just a case of like it's almost like a move that's disrespectful because you're basically this is the first move that you're taught when you're a young boy and you're using it to try and beat people in the main event. Just thought that's how I interpret it. That might be completely wrong, but I think that would be quite good if that was the way he's doing it.
I like that he has. So I know I just gonna kind of be a hypocrite here because I just said I don't know if I would trust him beating Okada with the Judas effect, but I like that he has so many arrows in his quiver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got the Judas effect, the Lion Salt, the Code Breaker, and the Walls of Jericho, which he can then transition into the Lion Tamer. But speaking of Lion Tamer in his past, he brought out a Tiger Driver 91 as one of the counters to the Rainmaker.
Yeah, it's good to see that he's like adding a lot. Well, just taking a lot of stuff that he's previously done and using it. He's still working well, even though it's obviously not as electric as he used to be. It's still very, very competent and very well put together. He's as technically sound as it gets at this point in his career.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Okada hit the Rainmaker once.
No, and that's the most interesting thing about it is the fact that for the finish, Jericho missed the Judas effect, Okada missed the Rainmaker, and then had a Codebreaker blocked, and Okada sat down when Jericho was going for a sunset flip, and just pinned him off like a flash pin, which I don't think the crowd was expecting that sort of finish.
I wasn't expecting it.
No.
It fell flat for me a little bit, but it made sense because Chris Jericho immediately got up and started attacking Okada.
Yeah, and the promise was that Chris Charlton had brought up in the start of the match was the fact that Okada wanted to out-wrestle Jericho. And he did out-wrestle Jericho. He beat him with a wrestling hold rather than having to like outpower him or out-strike him, which I think is a nice way of doing it. But so even though the match ended out of nowhere and maybe it fell a bit flat for certain people, Jericho's immediately on the attack and he hits a steel chair to the head of Okada, hit his Judas effect elbow, and then sends him into the ring post with a chair wrapped around his neck. But before he gets the opportunity to powerbomb Okada through a table, Tanahashi is up out of the seat because he'd been on commentary for the second half of the night. And he gets in Jericho's face, pushes him away, and he has to be held back by young boys as Jericho taunts him and Okada in the crowd. So
Jericho, I love Jericho on the mic in Japan. He just starts cursing, and it's just great because he picks up the mic and he just goes, "Hey, listen, Tanahashi, you little bitch, you know, you're gonna get it. I'm gonna see you somewhere down the line, and you too, Okada. Happy championship, bitch."
It's just I don't imagine he'll be able to be as liberal on the mic when they're on TNT in October. But yeah, it's a good way of doing it, and this accomplished a lot. Even though I think the crowd booing towards the end is never a good sign if the night ends with a load of the crowd unhappy. But it's building story at the very least. And the fact is that Jericho
don't do that a lot either.
No, they don't do it very often. So if they didn't do it all the time, then I'm fine with them doing once in a while. And this sets up Jericho potentially having another shot against Okada going forward for the title. He definitely sets up a match with Tanahashi, which I absolutely expect to happen in Wrestle Kingdom.
You think he gets the Wrestle Kingdom match? I was thinking maybe they do it on like one of the major G1 shows in America.
Well, I think the match against Okada will be on one of those shows for the title. I think the match against Tanahashi is at Wrestle Kingdom.
I wonder how much they're going to let slide because they're on TV in October. So I'm wondering how long AEW guys can do New Japan stuff. Moxley has said that he's going to do outside things a little bit, and then once 2020 hits, he'll be focusing mostly on AEW. But can Moxley and Jericho and potentially even Omega be a part of Wrestle Kingdom?
I think Jericho with the rep that he's built up, would almost certainly be allowed to do it. Moxley definitely much depends on whether they're willing to, whether he basically becomes exclusive to AEW post-October. And Omega, we still don't really know what the true nature of his relationship with New Japan is yet, because he hasn't gone back since leaving. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, and also a thing that needs to be taken into account by the finish of this match is, will Okada even wrestle in the G1? You have to assume that he will, but they can play off the fact that he took this beating from Jericho at the end to play off the fact of he doesn't have a great tournament.
That's true.
Because obviously he injured his neck. Could go by the fact that he injured his neck on the attack with Jericho, which means that he's weakened, and it means that maybe even like either early on or later in the tournament he's able to like survive and withstand it early on, but you can gradually see the damage, like the toll that it's been taken on his neck and other parts of his body, and he starts losing some matches towards the end, and that's how you rule Okada out of this, and also set up a number of other IWGP Championship matches, because obviously the G1 is not just a place where it determines who's going to be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. It determines who's going to be challenging for titles all up to that point as well. Because it's just a case of like Okada could lose a match to JY, or could lose a match to Tanahashi, or even someone like Kenta at some point during the match, sometimes during the build of it, and gets a match at at the end of one of the tours, or like Destruction in Fukuoka or something like that. I think that's one of the ones. I'm not as clued up on my list of pay-per-views, but I know there's definitely like 3 or 4 different shows they could do heavyweight championship matches on in the build-up to it.
It's gonna be really interesting to see where they decide to go with Okada going forward, because let's not kid ourselves. Okada's champion, yes, and by the way, he's the first champion to even get through 1, let alone 2 successful title defenses this year. But he also already had the championship for a record title reign. He doesn't necessarily need to hold it that much longer. So it'll be interesting to see if they take it off of him before Wrestle Kingdom.
I'm pretty sure that, I mean, I'm not, obviously, at least in my mind, I think Okada holds it up until Wrestle Kingdom. I think the most interesting thing is who he's defending against. Like, I think the thought of an Okada Ibushi match is something that people haven't seen yet. Or at
You
least
think
not.
Ibushi's the guy that can carry the company?
I think now that he's signed that long-term contract, any doubts about the thought about him holding the championship and going away with it, or not wanting to stick around, has been completely alleviated.
Well, he did say he's going to end his career with New Japan.
Yeah, and so now he has that certainty attached to him. I think it's more likely than it previously was.
That could have just been a comment. Could have just been a comment on his in-ring style, though.
Oh no, obviously. But then it's also with the fact of, if Omega is able to come into New Japan going forward, there has to be an Ibushi Omega main event match at some point.
How do you feel about Wrestle Kingdom being 2 nights? Like it's going to be spread across the 4th and the 5th?
As long as there's good enough stuff on both nights, I would like one of the nights to be focused, not obviously not primarily, but one of the nights focused a bit around Jyushin Liger. Because it will be his final night, his final weekend at the company before he retires. So maybe if he main events one of the nights, like the first night before the main Wrestle Kingdom show, that could be an interesting way of doing it.
That would be a good spot for the Suzuki match, I think.
Can they really drag it out for another 6 months?
I think, well, when you put it that way, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not Suzuki, but it would be interesting to see, like, thinking about who the final match, like him against Ospreay for a final match.
Yeah,
would be the best way of him going out on like a 4-star match or anything.
Maybe even putting the juniors title on it.
Potentially. I mean, I'd be surprised, considering how Liger has always conducted himself. I'd be surprised he would want to be in this final match, because I think he feels like he doesn't need to do that now, and he's fine passing the torch over. But we'll see how that happens.
One of the things Ospreay has said is he wants the juniors to be able to main event. So maybe that's one way you can get it done.
Absolutely, but that's definitely a long way down the road, and there's definitely a lot of stuff to happen going forward, which will happen with the G1. We'll probably end up, if our next post show regarding New Japan will probably be based around the end of the G1, because there's so much to happen in between, and we won't be able to do shows for all of that stuff.
Yeah, because God knows with AEW, there's so many other things to cover.
Yeah, so, but I hopefully we'll be back by the end of that one, because that one, the G1 doesn't finish until early August, right?
I believe so, yeah.
It starts on the first week of July. I think it's like the 9th or 10th, something like that. Like, it's starting in America, obviously, which is obviously an interesting take on it as well.
Yeah, they're doing it in Dallas.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how that starts out and who they put over in regards to it being in America as well, at least on the first, like for the first part of it, and then yeah, by the end of it, we'll have an idea about the landscape going into Wrestle Kingdom. But at the end of the day, this show was a very good show. A lot of like really good matches. I don't think there was anything. I wouldn't say any of the matches tonight were match of the year caliber, but they were all like to a very high standard.
So, the final of the G1 Climax 29 will be on Monday, August 12th.
August 12th, okay, so that'll be the next time, hopefully, we're discussing this side of things.
However, SummerSlam, this is what I thought, is on Sunday, August 11th.
Wow, these guys really, there's too much wrestling, guys.
Yeah, because there's the final, or I guess the penultimate night of the G1 is Sunday, August 11th, which I'm guessing will be in the morning time. Here's the point. August may kill us. May didn't get it done. August might, because there's a lot of wrestling. But that being said, maybe we do SummerSlam and then we jump straight into the G1. Who knows? You know how you find out, guys? You subscribe to the Smark Moment YouTube channel and you ring that bell for notifications. And if you're listening to us on any podcast platforms such as Stitchers, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, give us a subscription and give us a rating, leave us a comment, all that good stuff to let us know that you're liking what we're doing, so we can continue to do this extra non-linear, outside of WWE kind of content. Another way you can support is by donating to our Patreon. If you have the spare change, that's always greatly appreciated. There is also the Redbubble and TeePublic pages for merchandise, and that's it for the Smart Out Moment side of things. Callum, what kind of plugs do you want to throw out there?
Well, besides checking out all of the weekly articles on smarkoutmoment.com, obviously want to throw out my own one with the power rankings, but checking out the Triple Threat and the Battle for the Brands and Cheap Pop, Cheap Hit, Women's Wrestling Weekly, all that other great stuff. You can find me on Twitter at Weekmeister14, and you can watch 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey, which is our series where me and Rob are going back in time, all the way back to 2001. Just check out what the wrestling landscape was like back then. And we've got episodes every single month from January through to May, and a special on WrestleMania X7 as well. So definitely check all those ones out as well by going back into the YouTube archives or the podcast platforms and just going back and listening to them, because they're timeless, because they already happened. And then we'll hand over to you, Rob, for your own personal plugs.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. Check out WrestleZone Daily. I'm on their Facebook page Monday through Thursday, taking listener questions. You could check out eWrestling News and my clothing brand, Time Killer Apparel. And we want to thank you for checking out this NJPW Dominion Pay-Per-Viewpoint. And this has been another Smark Out Moment, and you are being counted out.